There's a four-step manipulation tactic so common you've probably experienced it without knowing it had a name. It's called DARVO, and once you see it, you'll spot it everywhere. DARVO stands for Deny, Attack, Reverse, Victim and Offender. It's a defensive strategy that abusers, manipulators, and people caught in wrongdoing use to flip the script entirely. Instead of taking responsibility, they rewrite the narrative so that you become the problem and they become the victim. And the scariest part is how effective it is. Let's break down exactly how this works so you can recognize it the moment someone tries it on you. The first move is Deny. When confronted with something they've done, they simply refuse to acknowledge it happened. This isn't always a flat-out lie. Sometimes it's more subtle. They'll say you misunderstood, you're remembering wrong, or you're taking things out of context. They create just enough doubt that you start questioning your own reality. If you said something hurtful, they deny they said it. If they missed an important event, they deny they knew about it. The goal is to make you unsure of what you actually witnessed. The second move is attack. Once denial doesn't work, they go on offense. They attack your character, your credibility, your sanity. They might call you oversensitive, dramatic, or crazy. They might bring up unrelated mistakes you've made. They might question your motives, or suggest you're the one who's actually being manipulative. The attack is designed to put you on your heels, make you defensive, and shift your focus away from what they actually did. The third move is reverse, victim and offender. This is where the real manipulation happens. They flip the entire dynamic. Now they're the one who's been wronged. They're the victim of your accusations, your anger, or your unreasonable demands. They've been hurt by your suspicion, or your attempts to hold them accountable. Suddenly you're the aggressor, and they're the ones suffering. They might say things like, "I can't believe you'd accuse me of this," or "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." The fourth move is offend. Sometimes people skip straight to this or cycle back to it. They take offense at being questioned at all. How dare you suggest they did something wrong? The sheer audacity of your accusation is an insult to them. This offense becomes the new focus of the conversation. You're now defending why you even brought it up in the first place. What makes DARVO so dangerous is that it works on multiple levels. It confuses you. It makes you doubt your own perceptions. It exhausts you emotionally. And it almost always succeeds in derailing the original conversation about what they actually did. But here's what matters. There are places in this chain where you can break it. There are moments where the manipulation loses its power if you know what to look for. Understanding those breaking points is the difference between getting trapped in this cycle and walking away clear-headed. That's what we're covering in the rest of this breakdown. We're going to show you exactly where the chain is weakest and how to interrupt it before it pulls you under. So let's walk through each move. The first is denial. This is the person saying it never happened. You brought up something they did, something you witnessed, and they're telling you that you're misremembering, or you're making it up entirely. The power of denial is that it plants doubt. You start second-guessing yourself. Did that really happen? Am I being unfair? That's the whole point. They're not trying to convince you with logic. They're trying to scramble your sense of what's real. The breakpoint here is simple but hard. Trust your own documentation, not your memory alone. Write things down when they happen. Save messages. Keep receipts. Not because you're paranoid, but because denial loses its teeth when you have evidence. The moment you say, "I have your text from Tuesday," the gaslighting strategy collapses. They can't deny what's in writing. The second move is attack. When denial doesn't work, they pivot. Now they're attacking your character, your credibility, your motives. You're too sensitive. You're crazy. You're trying to destroy them. You're the real problem here. This move is designed to make you defensive. You spend all your energy explaining why you're not crazy instead of staying focused on what they actually did. It's a redirect. A brilliant one. The breakpoint is refusing to defend yourself. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but every time you explain why you're not crazy, you're playing their game. Instead, you name what's happening. You say, "You're attacking me," instead of addressing what I brought up. Then you stop talking, you don't elaborate, you don't justify, you don't convince. You just state it and hold the boundary. The third move is reversal. Now they're the victim. You're the one who hurt them. You're the one being unfair or cruel. They might cry. They might tell other people you're the aggressor. They rewrite the entire narrative so they're at the center of suffering. This move is particularly effective because it hijacks your empathy. You don't want to be the bad guy, so you soften. You apologize. You take responsibility for their feelings. The breakpoint is separating their pain from their responsibility. Someone can be hurting and still have done something wrong. Both things are true at once. You can say, "I understand you're upset, and I'm also not going to take responsibility for your reaction to being held accountable." You don't have to manage their emotional response to consequences. The fourth move is victimhood. This is the long game. They position themselves as perpetually wronged, by you, by the world, by circumstance. They become the hero of a story where everyone else is the villain. This move is insidious because it can go on indefinitely. They can keep generating new grievances, new proof that they're the real victim here. The breakpoint is recognizing that you cannot fix this for them. You cannot prove you're not the villain in their narrative. You cannot earn back their trust through perfect behavior. That's not how this works. The only move that actually breaks the chain is the one you make by stepping out of it entirely. You stop participating in the cycle. You stop trying to convince them, defend yourself, manage their feelings, or prove your innocence. That's where real power lives, not in winning the argument, in refusing to have it. And here's what that actually looks like in practice, because theory means nothing if you can't recognize it when it's happening to you. Let's say you set a boundary, you tell someone no. They deny what happened, they rewrite the story, they attack you, and now you're exhausted and doubting yourself. At this point, most people do one of two things. They either collapse back into the relationship and accept whatever narrative the other person is selling, or they double down. They gather evidence. They try harder to explain. They compile receipts. Both of those keep you in the cycle. The person using DARVO doesn't actually want resolution. They want you tired. They want you smaller. So the moment you start collecting evidence to prove your point, you've already lost, because you've accepted their game. You've agreed that if you can just explain well enough, if you can just show them what they did, then they'll understand and things will change. They won't. Breaking the chain means something different. It means you state your boundary once, clearly, not defensively, not with a list of reasons why you're right, just the boundary itself. And then when they deny, attack, or reverse, you don't engage with the content of what they're saying. You don't try to correct the record. You acknowledge that you've heard them, and you repeat your boundary. That's it. I'm not comfortable with that. You're being unfair. I understand you see it that way. I'm still not comfortable with it. You're not trying to convince them anymore. You're not managing their emotional reaction. You're not defending your character. You're just restating the fact of your own limit, over and over, until they realize you're not playing. This is uncomfortable. It feels cold. It feels like you're being dismissive or cruel, especially if you've been trained to manage other people's feelings your whole life. But here's the thing. Their discomfort with your boundary is not your responsibility to fix. Their anger at your refusal is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. The chain breaks when you stop treating their reaction as information about whether your boundary is valid. A lot of people get stuck here because they think refusing to engage means they're giving up. They're being passive. They're letting the other person win. But that's still thinking inside the frame of winning and losing. There is no winning a conversation with someone who's committed to DARVO. There's only escaping it. And sometimes that escape is temporary. Sometimes it's permanent. Sometimes it's physical distance. Sometimes it's emotional distance. Sometimes it's just a shift in how much weight you give their words. But in every case, the moment you stop needing them to understand you, the chain loses its grip. You don't have to cut anyone off. You don't have to blow up your life. You just have to become unshakable about what you know to be true about yourself. And you have to stop performing that knowledge for an audience that will never believe it anyway. So here's where most people get stuck. They understand the 4 moves. They can name them, they see them coming. But they still feel the pull to respond, to explain, to make it make sense. That's because DARVO doesn't work through logic. It works through shame. When someone denies what you know happened, you feel the heat of being called a liar. When they attack your character, you feel the sting of being misunderstood. When they reverse the roles, you start to wonder if maybe you're the problem. And when they play the victim, you feel guilty for causing them pain. These aren't intellectual responses. They're emotional ones. And they're exactly what keeps you in the chain. Breaking it means you have to get comfortable with something that feels deeply wrong at first. You have to let them stay wrong about you. You have to let them believe the lie. You have to let them feel like the victim, even though you know the truth. And you have to be okay with them hating you for it. This is the part. Nobody tells you about setting boundaries. It's not that you need to make them understand. It's that you need to stop needing them to. The person using DARVO is betting everything on your need for external validation. They're betting that you'll keep trying to convince them, keep explaining yourself, keep performing your innocence like it's a court case they get to judge. The moment you stop doing that, the move doesn't work anymore. It's like throwing a punch at someone who isn't there. But here's the thing. Stopping that performance doesn't mean you become cold or cruel. It doesn't mean you stop caring what they think. It means you care what you think more. It means when they deny, you don't feel compelled to prove. When they attack, you don't feel compelled to defend. When they reverse, you don't feel compelled to correct. And when they play victim, you don't feel compelled to comfort them. You just let it happen. You acknowledge it happened to you. You move forward anyway. This is where people often confuse detachment with healing. They think the goal is to not care at all. But that's not it. The goal is to care about yourself more than you care about their version of events. The goal is to know that your reality is real, even when they're standing right in front of you, insisting it isn't. Some people will never accept what you're telling them. Some people will take the DARVO chain and wrap it around someone else instead. Some people will spend years telling themselves, and anyone who will listen, that you were the villain. And you won't be able to stop that. You won't be able to control their narrative. But you can control whether you keep trying. You can control whether you keep performing. You can control whether you let their disbelief shake your foundation. And that control is the only thing that actually matters, because it's the only thing you ever really had anyway. So here's what breaks the chain. It's not a perfect comeback. It's not proving them wrong. It's not finally making them understand. Those things feel like they should work, but they don't. Because DARVO isn't actually about facts or logic. It's about power and narrative control. And you can't win a game where the other person gets to change the rules mid-play. What actually works is this. You name it. You say out loud, to yourself first, and then to whoever needs to hear it. That's denial. That's rage. That's a reversal. That's victimhood. You don't have to do it in front of them. You can do it alone, in your car, in your journal, wherever. But you have to see it clearly. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, it loses its grip on you. The second thing is you stop performing. DARVO only works if you're still trying to convince the person that you're right, that you're good, that you deserve to be believed. The moment you stop auditioning for their approval, the manipulation loses its fuel. You don't owe anyone a defense. You don't owe anyone a perfect explanation. You don't owe anyone your emotional labor while they're actively trying to discredit you. And the third thing, the one that actually takes courage, is you accept that they might never get it. They might never apologize. They might never admit what happened. They might spend the rest of their life telling a version of events that doesn't include your truth. And you have to be okay with that. Not because they're right, but because your healing doesn't depend on their agreement. That's the break in the chain. That's where you step out. DARVO works because it makes you feel crazy. It makes you question yourself. It makes you think if you just explain one more time, if you just stay calm enough, if you just prove your point hard enough, they'll finally understand. But understanding was never the goal. Control was. And the only way you win is by deciding you're not playing anymore. You don't have to cut anyone off. You don't have to make a dramatic exit. You can stay in the relationship. You can have the conversation. But you do it differently. You do it from a place where their denial doesn't wound you, where their rage doesn't scare you, where their reversal doesn't make you doubt yourself, where their victimhood doesn't obligate you. That's the shift. That's the freedom. The pattern doesn't disappear. The person probably doesn't change, but you do. And when you change, the power dynamic changes with you. They can deny, rage, reverse, and victimize all they want. But if you're not there performing belief in their version of reality, the whole thing collapses. You already have everything you need to do this. You have your own clarity. You have your own truth. You have your own ability to decide what you believe about yourself, regardless of what anyone else says. Hold on to that. Protect that. And watch what happens when you finally stop fighting for someone else's understanding and start fighting for your own peace instead.